Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners, hosted by agency veteran and coach Steve Guberman. Agency Bytes is a podcast focused on delivering actionable agency information from agency experts in about 25 minutes. Why 25 minutes? Because who has the attention span for much more these days? And you can squeeze in a listen between meetings with time for a bathroom break or coffee refill before your next meeting.
Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners. I'm Steve Guberman from Agency Outsight, where I coach agency owners to build the agency of their dreams. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined with a dear friend from Santa Fe, New Mexico, Peleg. He's an artist, a trained spiritual director, and a teacher who mentors accomplished creatives and agency owners who meet themselves at a crossroad. And we're going to talk about that crossroad today. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to see you.
It's great to be here.
Why don't you start out, kind of give us your backstory? Like, how did we get here and how did you end up in kind of the position in so many people's lives that you're in today?
Wow, that's a big question. It's been a long journey, you know. So I was an agency owner myself for close to 20 years. I ran an agency in Los Angeles. I started very early in my career. So by the time that I reached my late 30s, I started feeling the burnout, and I started feeling like the business was doing well, but it wasn't really fulfilling me. It wasn't growing me anymore, and that experience was a moment where I call it my spiritual crisis, where I, for the first time, really had to take a look at who I am and what matters to me. And I realized that being an agency owner I was complete with that. And that was not something that I ever thought I would feel, from the time I remember myself being a very young artist, very young designer. Having an agency was just the dream. And, I achieved that dream. And of course, I could have kept going, but there was a part of me that knew that I was done, that I was complete, but it was very hard for me to actually accept that. I was resisting it and fighting it because my whole identity was wrapped up in that. Mm-hmm. So that was really the first time that I began to seek help and seek support. And I started working with a spiritual teacher, a spiritual director, who began to ask me the kind of questions that I wasn't asking myself. And from the get-go of our work together, the questions were so heart-piercing. It was just like, oh, wow, I haven't thought about this stuff. And of course, the work unfolded in such a way that I began to really see the impact that the work that we were doing together was having on my life. Coaching people was always something that was a natural part of who I was. Even when I had my agency, I was coaching clients. I was coaching other designers, helping them figure out how to market and grow their business. It was something that was always fun to do. It was one of those things that, I will do even if I don't get paid. Right. And I began to really kind of lean into that idea of, well, what if this is the next path? What if creating something professionally that will support my gift of supporting people could actually be a career path? And that's one of those decisions that I had to make at some point. And that decision shifted my course of my life, and life unfolded, and I began to take the work seriously and create a practice and start marketing the work. And I had a bit of an advantage coming out of the gate because I was involved and in partnership with a dear woman who was my mentor for many years. Her name is Elise Bennett. I think she was a guest on your podcast. And
Elise who introduced us, actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Elise and I wrote a marketing and a pricing book for our industry, and it kind of helped put me on the map as a business coach. And honestly, many of the first experiences I've had, the first few years of coaching, the work evolved around business and around money, and agency owners that would come to me with a specific intention in mind of growing their business. And I very quickly saw and recognized that almost all of the business challenges that people were having were personal and spiritual problems in disguise.
Yeah.
And once we began to open up those conversations and begin to really talk about their inner world, that's when the change actually began to happen. The change that they actually wanted to see happen, because it was less about here's what you need to do and was more about here's who you want to become in order to align yourself with the business you want to have.
Yeah.
Um, so I've been coaching people now for 20 years, and it's been an
Wow.
amazing journey. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I guess you and I met probably about 15 years ago here in New Jersey at a design conference, because
Sounds about
I
right.
think your book had already come out with Elise, but you definitely hadn't been doing it this long. But so is all the work that you're doing with creative professionals around burnout, creative burnout, or is it all more general about kind of spiritual alignment with themselves so that can impact their lives and their business?
Well, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Um,
That's fair.
the burnout that people experience that motivates them to reach out to me and work with me is the symptom.
Hmm.
Um, that's the opening. That's the space that they experience that gets their attention. Right? Burnout is a symptom of something's not working.
Yeah.
By now, I have developed a process that helps wake the person up and helps them get in touch with remember who they are as an artist. I mean, we tend to,
Mm.
especially creatives, that the
Yeah.
reason we actually got into this business is because we're artists, right?
Yeah.
We put the design and agency owner, title, on that. And oftentimes when we become those agency owners, ask any agency owner that how much time percentage of your time do you actually spend on creating
Hmm.
work versus managing clients, writing proposals, managing employees, all of the other stuff that doesn't actually tap into their artistry. It's a very, very small percentage. I remember I was there myself.
Yeah.
So the first step is really kind of just like wake them up, wake up that soul artist inside that has been dormant for decades and hasn't been really expressing itself. And
Mm.
that's kind of like the first phase of the work. But the delicious space that I love meeting my clients at is what happens once they're awake, because that's when new ideas come up. That's when new creation wants to kick in. And that's when I love working with them as well, is let's create what next. And,
Interesting.
I serve as their thinking partner, as their,
Hmm.
as their coach and their mentor, but it becomes a co-creation process. And that's when magic happens. That's when I love seeing what manifests out of that experience.
Yeah. It's interesting how you talk about symptoms being, I launched an agency because I love to create. I was an artist. And then fast forward 2, 3 years in, I don't get to design anymore. Maybe I'm overseeing a designer or, but I'm biz dev, proposals, contracts, networking, blah, blah, blah. All the things that I didn't know I had to do as a business owner when I went into this. And now how do I get back to it? And what you're talking about is there's a crossroads where if I don't wake up, if you're not smacking me awake, I'm going to hit the eject button. And that's kind of what I did. I was like, I'm burned out. I'm done. I had just have to lay people off for the first time because we lost our biggest client. It broke my heart. My divorce just got final. Like all these things
Yeah.
that said it's time to hit the eject button.
Yeah.
And that, that burnout, that bottom, that whatever, I think there's a lot of agency owners out there that are just kind of, they're going along, dragging along, the agency's dragging them along, whatever. And they
Yeah.
need that wake up call that, hey, there's something greater that can be going on here with you, with your agency, with your creative mind, with the motivation that you had to first start this agency in the first place. But it's not a one and done thing. There's got to be, right? There's ongoing maintenance, ongoing practice, ongoing things that I need to do to avoid burnout, right?
Yeah, I like to call burnout. I mean, we throw this term around a lot because we
Mm,
understand what it means. But from my perspective, burnout to me is when we fall asleep to ourselves, when we
mm,
when we disconnect from the essence and the artist that we really are, and we give permission to our inner critic to run the show. And that's where most of the people that enter into the work with me are at. They're in a space where they have kind of forgotten who they are because they have devoted their entire life to their identity as building an identity as a business owner, as the
mhm,
agency owner, which worked, right? Which was it's blessed. It's not to say that that was the wrong thing to do, but that is what the pattern seems to be, right? So we get into this work because we love creating, we love designing, we like making things, and we find ourselves in a space where we're not actually doing that anymore.
mhm.
We're becoming managers, we're, be, we're becoming the type of person that ultimately may not have been on our path. So um, that that awakening part that we're talking about, it's really waking myself up to myself. And if we don't stay awake, if we don't work on keeping that part of ourselves alive, I can guarantee you that we'll fall back asleep and
Yeah.
might have to go through another process of meeting ourselves again and recognizing what really matters to us, what our value is, and all that good stuff.
You talk about the inner voice. For me, when I think about like the inner voice, there's two. Well, there's probably a zillion voices in there. Maybe that's a topic for another conversation. But the two that I think about are the one that's typically quieter. That's like, you got this, you can do this, you're smart, you're talented, you're dashing, all these things. Then there's the imposter syndrome. That's like, you're garbage, you don't know anything, nobody's gonna hire you. Like,
Yeah.
how do you, is that part of the process? And if so, how do you help? Like, what are some tips that you have for kind of balancing those voices?
It's not about balancing the voices, it's about recognizing what triggers our inner critic
Mm,
and learning how to tame that voice. That voice, that part of us is there for a reason. Our inner critic is there to ultimately keep us safe and protect us, right? However, inner critic also is fed by fear,
hmm.
right? So if I'm operating from a fear place, I'm going to feed that voice more and more and more. So the work is really not about balancing the voices. The work is really about learning to shift my mindset from a scarcity and fear mindset to love and abundance so I
Mm,
can actually hear that loving voice in a much louder way, trust it, and know when to listen to my inner critic, know when to actually access that part of myself, and have the awareness and the presence to recognize when my inner critic voice is actually resistance that's showing up and what to do about it. And that is a process. This
yeah.
is what it takes time. It's kind of like I tell some people is it's kind of like learning to tame a wild dog that you just adopted.
Yeah.
You can't do it in like a day or a week or a month. It takes time, and it takes consistency of not letting that voice um, be in control. And the only way that we can actually ultimately learn to tame that voice is by increasing the way we love ourselves. It's kind of like a balancing act. That is the balancing act. The more I love
Mm.
myself, the less my inner critic voice and fear are running my show.
So self love is essentially kind of the answer that you're talking about, where if I'm
Yeah,
working 20 hours a day and I'm sick of running an agency, I've stopped caring for
it's part
my
of it.
my body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah,
And I need to, whether it's delegate things off my plate so somebody else is handling it so I can carve an hour in my day to go for a walk, to start to nurture myself again and take care of myself and love myself, then I can put myself in a place of abundance, of not abundance of a pile of cash, but abundance of self-care and not being in
Well,
a fear-driven world.
abundance. Let's talk about abundance. Okay, let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about the definition of abundance. Let's start there as a starting point. Um, Abundance, in my view, is the ability to do what I need whenever I need to do it. That to me is abundance. Now, the key word here is ability, right? The ability to do what I need to do when I need to do it. Not specifically what I want to do when I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I really need to do when I need to do it, right? So let's use that as a starting point to the approach of this conversation. What you've described about the agency owner that's working 20 hours a week, I've been there myself. You've been there yourself. You know what it's
Mm-hmm.
like. To practice self-love is not only to take a break and not work so hard. Um, that's one part of it, absolutely. When I'm talking about self-love, it's the way that I speak to myself, the way that I lead myself.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm leading myself from a place of fear and scarcity, the decisions and the choices that I make will ultimately lead me to a life of working 20 hours a week. It would lead me to a life of not being able to say no to a client. It would lead me
Mm-hmm.
to a life of undercharging for my work. It all adds up.
Right.
If I love myself, I will value my work. I will seek clients that align with my values. I will not be afraid to command high fees for my work. I will see the value of my work and I'll know how to articulate it in the world. I will treat my staff differently. I will set boundaries that are um, supporting the growth of my business. That's acting from a place of love and trusting that that is the right way to go.
Yeah.
Sadly, most of us don't trust love. We trust fear. It's a phenomenon.
Is it safe to say that we don't trust love because we're afraid of it? I mean, is that essentially what you're saying?
Um, wow, I've never thought about it that way. I think we come to a place when it's hard for us to trust love, is that we don't know love completely.
Hmm.
We can't trust what we don't know. Think about it. Do you trust
Yeah.
anybody you don't know? We have to get to know someone really well for us to trust it. So a lot of the work that I do with people is teach them how to love, teach them how to trust love, teach them that the more that we actually engage in loving ourselves and self-love activities and in creating that abundance in our lives, the more we learn to trust love, the more we learn to say yes to decisions that are actually founded by coming from a place of self-love and not a place of scarcity, jealousy,
Hmm.
envy, or fear of going out of business.
Yeah. Can you talk at all about some of the things that an agency owner, I guess it's applicable to anybody that's got that, negative self-talk or finds himself in this place, tools that they can use either to start to rebound from it or, start to shift things into more of a preventative mode?
Well, I think that the first thing to look at is to kind of do a self-examination and be real with yourself and recognize, where is fear running me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what's behind that fear? Because ultimately, what's feeding that fear is a belief system, right? So if I want to shift from fear mode to love mode, not only the way I'm loving myself, but the way that I am in relationship with love, right? If I want to shift from that place, I have to really examine my belief system. And if my belief system is fear based, right, that's the first place to start. Is
Mm-hmm.
to begin to recognize, where do those beliefs come from? What are they founded on? Are they actually my beliefs? Because generally, the beliefs that we develop. What is a belief? Let's start there. right? What, in your opinion, how would you define a belief? How do we
I
develop one?
guess it's hard to define for me what a belief is without almost sounding redundant, but it's a value that I want to live by, and I have to believe it before I can live by it. So something that I think about, that I admire in others, that I want for myself
Uh-huh.
before it's an action.
Uh-huh. Okay. One word I want to pull out from what you said, and that's the word think, right? The definition of a belief is simply a repeated thought. If you think things enough times, they'll become a belief, right?
Yeah.
Um, look at the media, the way it feeds us things, and
Hmm.
trying to influence our belief system by showing us things that we see it over and over and over and over again. We begin to believe that it's reality, that it's true. So the belief system that we've developed came from a repeated thought. Now, that repeated thought started way, 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 way earlier down the road when we were just developing as kids. Oh, Zoom is giving me the hands up here. um, the belief can be the belief that I'm not good enough, or that
Hmm.
I'm not worthy, or that I don't matter, right? Those beliefs we develop as a response to life. We may have grown up in a household that the message that we received growing up was that we don't matter, or they're not good enough, or fill in the blank. Whatever that belief, it becomes the foundation of who we become, right? It's that thought that we kept repeating. It turned into a belief, and now we walk around the world believing that we're not worthy, believing that we don't matter, we believing that we're not good enough, or whatever that belief is. So we first must
Right.
recognize, well, what is the belief system that's running me? What are those things? Um, for me, the belief system that was running me was that I am not loved unless I succeed. Right? That was a belief system that
Hmm.
motivated me to become an overachiever, to become a successful agency owner. Right? That's what it was actually feeding. It was that belief. There was a belief that
Yeah.
I'm not good enough, so I always have to work harder, and not really believe that what I deliver is good enough. It turns me into a perfectionist who overworks everything because I believe that I need to be perfect in order to be loved. So love, as you can see, is a common thread here, right?
Yeah.
So as an adult,
Hmm.
when I begin to recognize those thoughts, like, what is the thought? Because the thought will generate a feeling. And if I'm feeling stuck, or I'm feeling bad about myself, I want to recognize what got me there. What is the belief? So
Yeah.
if my belief is that I don't matter, right? And I really believe that it's what's running me, right? The decisions and the choices that I make, generally, the I don't matter turns people into people pleasers, because that's the only way that we feel valued, or we feel that we matter, is we please somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Once we begin to feel that, to believe that we actually matter, our actions begin to look very differently, right?
Mm.
So how do we do that? How do we change those beliefs? Well, first, recognize that the toxic belief that's running me, right? Recognize it, and
Hmm.
then turn it around. Turn the belief around. So if, for example, part of my belief system is I don't matter, well, I want to start telling myself that I matter. And I want to
Hmm.
start looking for proof that I matter. And that's part of the work, right? Is, okay, let's start working with this mantra, with this belief. So one of the assignments I give my students is, let's recognize those beliefs, let's turn them around, and let's write that mantra on a piece of post-it, on 10 pieces of post-its, and stick them all
Hmm.
around your house. So everywhere you look, you see, I matter, I matter, I matter. Our brain starts receiving this
Hmm.
message, and the repetition of it begins to create shift. It, I don't know how it works, but it does. I can tell you from my own experience. There's
Yeah.
constant mantras that I work with when I recognize that, there's another toxic belief here that presented itself, because we're kind of like an onion. You know, we peel one
Oh yeah.
toxic belief, ooh, the one underneath it shows up, and we peel that one, and the one underneath it shows up. So it's
Yeah.
a constant peeling of an onion that's called doing the work, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in this work for decades, and I'm still recognizing toxic beliefs that come up, because I keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's
And do you find the more work you do, the more old toxic beliefs kind of rear their ugly heads again on any given day?
well, no, I don't think that more show themselves up. The more I've been in this work, I've managed to heal a lot of parts of myself
Okay.
that have made those toxic beliefs kind of go away. You know, so if I am finding myself in, if I'm meeting myself in a place of feeling lost or confused or upset or depressed or anxious, right? Um, I know where to go look.
Hmm.
That to me is an indication that there's a toxic belief that's playing itself out right now. It's acting itself out. This is what it feels
Yeah.
like. So I've learned to recognize that feeling and use it as material to work with.
Yeah.
So I'll go in and work on myself, work with that belief until I get to a point where I kind of fine tune what that belief is, so I can begin to turn it around and start working with it.
Yeah.
Some beliefs, you know, are so deeply ingrained in us, Steve. I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up in a household that was definitely fear driven. That the belief system in the house, because I'm a son of two Holocaust survivors who, in their
Hmm.
lifetime, experienced everything can go away in a heartbeat. Right? That was the belief system that they
Wow.
operated from. So I grew up also believing that be careful, you know, don't do this, don't do that, because the world is dangerous. And be careful, because if you're not, things will not work out for you. So that is so ingrained in me. So I have a mantra that I work with that is things are always working out for me.
Hmm.
I've been working with that mantra for 30 years. Right? I still work with that mantra because somehow that belief seems to rear its ugly head in different forms. You know?
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
recognize, oh, here I am again, feeling insecure, worried about the future, worried about the unknown. Come back to the present, remind myself that things are always working out for me. And let me look for proofs in my life, just in the last week, how things are working out for me. That helps me get back into alignment with
Yeah.
myself and get back in touch with love. So it's about reconnecting with
Mm.
love
Yeah. I love that you're able to.
every day on a regular basis.
Yeah. I love that you're able to use the evidence of your present and even the past of things that, for that specific mantra, let's say, as an example, the evidence that everything is okay. So when I get in my head or I start to worry or anxiety or things creep in, I can say, wait, I've got the evidence that shows everything is okay. Everything will continue to be okay, whatever that looks like. And using that evidence to kind of, reassure you. What are like the benefits? And maybe this is an obvious question. I don't know, but doing this work, the beneficial outcomes, what do they typically look like for people that work with you?
I think ultimately it's happiness, it's
Hmm.
joy, it's flow, it's living a life where there's this inner peace that we wake up in the morning and we don't meet anxiety first thing. You know, that
Hmm.
we are just feeling like that we're flowing with life in a beautiful, abundant, organic way. That's the ultimate goal, right? Is to get to that place um, where we are actually experiencing ourselves as creators. That's what we were meant to be, as creators.
Yeah.
We came here to create, right? And we forget that. We forget that. Most of us who operate from fear, we don't create, we react. Think about the word react and create. Same letters, just different spelling, right? So the idea is to learn to become a creator and trust the creative process, which means if I'm a creative, a true creative, I'm not afraid to take risks. I'm not afraid to say no. I'm not afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to make mistakes.
Hmm.
Right? Those are traits for every creator that if they don't exist as the foundation, well, we're not really creatives. We're not a creative industry. We are
Yeah.
a reactive industry, is what we are.
Yeah. I love that. I want to shift gears real quick. I mean, I think this is super powerful. I think that the work that can, the work that I don't want to say can or should be done, but the work that can be done could result in just so much impact in our industry.
Oh yeah.
And it takes courage, right? And so people have to get out of their fear-based scenarios and walk through it, have the courage, have the faith, trust in somebody like you to guide them and shepherd them through the process. But yeah, the results and the impact that it can have on our industry and the world beyond. And I like to think that the work that I get to do with agency owners helps them have a better life, helps them run a better agency, helps their employees have better lives because they're running a better agency, then they're doing better work. And so it's not curing cancer, but it's a trickle down effect of, can we have a positive impact on as many people's lives as possible? And that's the work that you're doing. And I think it's so beautiful. And I
Thanks.
just encourage people to like take the courage to, what, like you said, take a step back, take a look. Can it be better? Can I be better? Can I get the
Yeah.
negative talk out of my head?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shift gears into more positive belief systems.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, when
yeah.
people ask me, what do you do? My current answer is I'm a love activator.
Mm,
Because that's essentially what my gift is is first of all knowing, recognizing fear, recognizing pain. I'm a out of control empath. So
mm,
when somebody sits in front of me, I feel their pain. I get where they're at, and
yeah.
that helps me relate to them. But more than that, it's ultimately about activating, turning love back on. Right? See, if I'm meeting you right now and you're describing all of these issues and problems that you have in your life and in your business, my diagnostic system is looking for, where's the fear?
Yeah.
This is how the fear is showing up and manifesting itself. Now, I believe that rather than addressing the fear and going into the fear, I believe in addressing love. Let's begin to dial raise the dial on the love part, activate love in you, teach you how to
Mm,
love yourself, um, train you and coach you on operating from a place of love, beginning to help you recognize when fear-based decisions are trying to take over. The more we're in that space, the more love is activated. Once it's on and active and healthy, and you are in a place where you are practicing staying in that space, my job's done.
yeah.
Go out there and thrive, go
Mm,
out there and create, and go show me what you've done. And that's
yeah.
really a big part of the joy of the work that I do is seeing the results of what people create. Things that they surprise themselves, because when they met me, they didn't believe they can actually get out of bed in the morning. Sometimes, they were so
Yep.
in such a space of burnout, and we're artists, we're creators. Let's just get back to that creative space and truly create, not just for other people, not to just answer a creative brief. Create my life,
Yeah.
create art that
Yeah.
expresses my inner world. That's what a lot of people are hungry for, and we forget that what makes us come alive.
Mm, I love that. Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. And I love that that's a, dare I say, a job, but a thing that you get to do in the world and fulfill your spirit by helping turn other people's on. So, I want to shift gears to wrap up with a couple random rapid fire random questions for you.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Unrelated to, I mean, it can be related to anything you want, but typically they're, not necessarily business related, but what's something that you're binging these days, whether it's a book, a podcast, a hobby, something you just can't get enough of?
Wow. I'm binging a lot of music.
Hmm.
That's in the last couple of years, I've discovered that I have a gift and a passion for DJing, and I facilitate
Okay.
ecstatic dance events here in Santa Fe, and it has kind of consumed a lot of my time in diving into music. And as as much as I dislike what Spotify is doing to musicians and the music industry as a
Hmm.
as an artist and as somebody who's worked in music for many years during my agency time and has seen the evolution of music, I'm actually also so grateful for the abundance access that I have for music. So I get lost in putting my headphones on and going down these rabbit holes of exploring music and just feeding myself with music continuously. So that's
That's
part of my life
beautiful.
these days. Yeah,
Yeah, and plus you don't have to carry around milk crates full of albums anymore.
exactly. Yeah.
What is a tool that you've recently integrated into your life? It can be physical or digital or of any nature, that you look back and you think, how did I live without this, whatever it is?
A tool. Wow. Um, a tool that I recently integrated into my life. Uh, 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 uh. Well, I will tell you that this is something that I started integrating into my work and into my life as well. It's the use of plant medicine,
Hmm.
both with my clients and with myself when I need to sort some things out.
Hmm.
That has become a really powerful tool for growth. So, yeah, that's something that I'm very much stand behind, and I believe that when somebody is when a person is ready to work with medicine, I'm there to guide them. Yeah, it's my
Yeah.
work is not dependent on it, but it adds a whole other level of depth and an opening, and it kind of also accelerates the process.
Hmm.
It's a door opener oftentimes, and I've been integrating it into my life and into my work and finding incredible benefits. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I know a number of people that take advantage of that as a resource and have had a profound impact on their lives. So, yeah, it's cool. Finally, what is a super valuable piece of business advice that you can share with the listeners?
Say no more often.
Hmm.
Say no more often.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah, we tend to
beautiful.
say yes too often and say yes to things that we don't want to say yes to out of fear of losing
Hmm.
business, out of fear of looking foolish, out of fear of whatever, the fears. I would
Yeah.
say, pay attention when the no exists in our body, when the no actually is trying to express itself, and trust your nose, trust that intuitive no that comes up, because our intuition, which is something that is a big part of this work that I do, it's not just helping people wake up, it's helping people really connect to their intuition, begin to listen and trust their intuition. In my life, my intuition was never wrong.
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but um, before I did a lot of this work, I didn't trust my intuition. I said yes to a lot of
Hmm.
things that in hindsight, I wish I'd say no. And I don't know about you, but I'm sure there have been moments in your life where you look back and you think, I knew I should have said no to that, right?
Yeah.
Listen to that no and say it more often, and trust that then when we say no to something, we may feel the temporary discomfort, right? But what we're also doing is we opening up space for the next yes, the true yes, the yes that actually feels right, that aligns with who we are, with our values, with our dreams, with our mission, with our vision to what we want to become and what we want to create in life. So trust your nose. Say no's more often.
I love that. Amazing. Peleg, thank you so much for joining me today, for your experience, for your wisdom, and just everything you had to share. I'm really grateful for your time. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me and creating this time and space. Yeah.
Thanks again for tuning in to Agency Bytes. If you know someone with expert knowledge on a topic that agency owners would love to hear about, go to agencyoutsight.com/podcast-guest and nominate them.